It was 6:47 p.m. when Emily first noticed the missed call. Her phone lit up with a number she hadn't seen in years, one that only a single person had ever used. Her heart froze. That number belonged to her late fiancé, Daniel. He had passed away almost 3 years ago, yet here it was, glowing on her screen. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, gripping her phone like it was a lifeline. She could hear the soft hum of the city outside her apartment window, the distant sirens, the faint chatter of people heading home. Everything felt ordinary, normal, and yet this call was anything but normal. She dialed the number instinctively, her fingers trembling. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a soft, familiar voice whispered her name, Emily. It wasn't just familiar, it was Daniel. Her mind raced, a mix of disbelief and longing. She shook her head, trying to ground herself. There had to be a mistake. But then came the details only Daniel would know. He spoke of their first date, of the coffee shop on Maple Street, where he had nervously spilled a cup of latte all over his shirt. He mentioned her favorite song, the one she always hummed while cooking. Every word cut through the years, pulling her back into a time she had tried desperately to move past. Emily's chest tightened. She had spent countless nights remembering him, imagining what life would have been like if tragedy hadn't stolen him away. And now, hearing his voice, even through a phone, felt surreal, almost cruelly beautiful. She sat frozen for a long moment, staring at her reflection in the darkened window. Was it possible? Could someone have his voice, imitating him perfectly? Her logical mind screamed at her to hang up, to stop the fantasy before it consumed her. But a deep, undeniable ache in her heart kept her listening. Emily, you have to come to the old cabin. It's important, please. Her stomach twisted. The cabin. They had spent one summer there together, laughing under the stars, talking about a life they never got to live. That cabin was supposed to be a place of happiness, yet now it felt ominous. She debated what to do. She could call the police, ignore the call, pretend it never happened. But the pull was too strong. Something in her bones told her this was more than a prank. It was him. Somehow, it had to be. Emily spent the next hour preparing, gathering a flashlight, a small bag, and a notebook. She called her best friend Jenna, but only left a vague message. Going somewhere important. I'll be back soon. She couldn't tell anyone the truth. Not yet. Not until she knew what she was stepping into. By the time she got into her car, the city lights had dimmed into night, and a gentle fog rolled over the streets. The drive was silent, except for the soft hum of the engine and the faint sound of her own thoughts, spiraling between hope and fear. Arriving at the cabin, Emily felt her pulse racing. The door was slightly ajar, as though someone had been waiting. She took a deep breath, reminding herself to stay calm. Her hand trembled as she pushed it open. Inside, the room smelled faintly of pine and old wood. Everything looked untouched, frozen in the moment they had last been there together. And then she saw it. A small envelope on the table, addressed to her in Daniel's unmistakable handwriting. Her hands shook as she tore it open, revealing a single note. I never wanted to leave you, Emily. Meet me tonight. Her heart skipped a beat. The logical part of her screamed to run, to call for help, to leave before the night swallowed her. But the part that had loved him so deeply, the part that still ached in silence, couldn't turn away. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. A sudden creak from the floor above made Emily freeze. The cabin was empty, wasn't it? Her flashlight flickered, and a cold draft brushed past her neck. Something was moving in the shadows. Emily's heart pounded as the creak echoed again, louder this time. She swallowed hard, gripping the flashlight like a shield. The shadows in the cabin seemed to stretch and twist, shifting with every flicker of light. She reminded herself to breathe, though every instinct screamed at her to run. The envelope trembled slightly in her hands. She read the note again. "I never wanted to leave you, Emily. Meet me tonight." The words felt impossibly real. Daniel's handwriting, so precise, so familiar, had haunted her dreams before, and now it was here, calling her to a place where memories and reality collided. Emily took a cautious step toward the staircase. Her boots made soft thuds on the wooden floor, but the sound seemed deafening in the silence. Upstairs, the shadows danced along the walls, and she thought she could hear the faintest whisper, her name, drawn out, soft, pleading. The thought of turning back flickered through her mind. Maybe this was some elaborate prank, or someone who had found an old number and wanted to scare her. But deep down, she knew it wasn't a prank. Daniel had a way of reaching her, even when he was gone. That summer at the cabin had been their world, untouched and private, and somehow the echoes of him had never truly left. She moved step by step, her eyes scanning the second floor. The room at the end of the hallway, their old bedroom, was slightly open. A soft light spilled through the crack under the door. Emily's breath caught. She remembered how they had spent hours in that room, talking, laughing, dreaming about the future. Memories surged, painful and beautiful, blending with the fear that had tightened her chest. Pushing the door open, Emily froze. The room was empty, except for the old mirror they had hung together. Its surface seemed to ripple faintly, like water disturbed by a stone. And then she saw it, a shadow moving behind her reflection, not in the room itself, but in the glass. She spun around. Nothing. Just the cabin, quiet, familiar, and yet impossibly strange. The hairs on the back of her neck prickled. Emily felt a cold breath brush past her ear, though the windows were closed. And then a soft whisper came, not from the mirror, not from the shadows, but from inside her mind. "Emily? Daniel! But how could it be?" Her logical mind shattered against the wave of longing, grief, and disbelief that swept over her. She took a hesitant step toward the mirror, her reflection trembling with her own uncertainty. The shadow in the glass shifted again, forming a silhouette she could recognize anywhere. Daniel's face appeared, faint and ghost-like, eyes full of emotion she had not seen in years. He raised his hand, as if reaching for hers. Emily's breath caught. Her legs felt weak, but her heart refused to turn away. "Emily, I'm here. I never left." Tears blurred her vision. Part of her screamed at the impossibility. He was gone. He couldn't be here. Yet every fiber of her being wanted to believe, wanted to reach out and touch him, even if it was just a fleeting echo of a life they had shared. Her fingers brushed the mirror, and the image shimmered, trembling as if it were alive. The air grew heavy, charged with something she couldn't name: hope, fear, longing, and an unspoken promise that this night was only the beginning. A sudden sound from downstairs made her jump, a chair scraping, deliberate and slow. Her mind raced. Was someone else here? Or was it him? She couldn't tell anymore where reality ended and memory began. Emily descended the staircase slowly, the flashlight trembling in her grip. The cabin seemed to hold its breath with her, waiting, watching. Each step felt heavier than the last, like the house itself knew the secret it was about to reveal. When she reached the living room, the envelope had moved. Not on the table anymore, but on the floor, directly under the window. She bent to pick it up, hands shaking, heart hammering. Inside, there was another note. "Look outside. I've been waiting for you." Emily's pulse surged. Outside, the fog had thickened, curling around the trees like fingers. The night air was cold, but it carried a scent she knew too well: pine, rain, and something faintly sweet that reminded her of Daniel. She stepped toward the window, pressing her hands against the glass. A figure stood beyond the fog. For a moment, her mind refused to see. And then she knew. It was him, Daniel, alive, or some part of him she had thought lost forever. Her heart ached and leapt at the same time. The impossible had arrived, and she had no choice but to follow. Emily's hands pressed against the cold glass, fog curling between her fingers. The figure outside was unmistakable: Daniel. Every detail, from his posture to the tilt of his head, was exactly as she remembered. Her chest tightened, caught between disbelief and longing. She had dreamed of this moment for years, and now it was here, yet more surreal than any dream. She hesitated, mind racing with questions. How could he be here? He had been gone. No, he had died. She had attended the funeral, felt the weight of loss, the hollow absence that followed. And now he stood beyond the window, calling her silently with his eyes. Emily wanted to run, to scream, to throw herself outside, but she paused. Fear and hope tangled inside her like knotted threads. Finally, she drew a deep breath and opened the cabin door. The night air was thick with fog and a sharp, earthy scent, familiar yet impossible. The figure remained still, waiting, almost as if he had known she would come. Each step toward him made her heart hammer harder, a rhythm she had thought lost forever. "Daniel?" Her voice barely rose above a whisper. He turned slightly, and she caught a glimmer of a smile, soft, almost painful, full of emotions words could never hold. "Emily," he said, voice low and steady, "you came." Her knees felt weak. She wanted to collapse into him, to touch him, to see if he was real. But something in his expression, haunted, distant, almost wary, made her pause. He wasn't quite the Daniel she had known, yet he carried the same warmth, the same depth that had drawn her to him in the first place. "Where have you been? How is this possible?" Her voice trembled, caught between tears and disbelief. He glanced past her, toward the dense fog that shrouded the forest behind the cabin. "I can't explain everything right now," he said, "but I couldn't leave without seeing you one last time. There are things you need to know, secrets I couldn't tell before." Emily's mind spun. Secrets? After all these years? And why now, in the middle of the night, calling her from a number she thought belonged only to the dead? Her chest ached, a mixture of fear and longing she couldn't name. I don't understand," she whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "I thought you're gone." His gaze softened, but there was a shadow behind it, a hint of sorrow she hadn't seen before. "I was never really gone," he said. "Not entirely. But the truth is, it's dangerous. If anyone knew I was here, they would come for both of us." Emily's stomach twisted. Danger? What could have happened to him that she hadn't known about? She felt a shiver run down her spine. The fog seemed thicker now, curling around them, hiding the edges of the world. "Why now?" she asked, her voice catching. "Why contact me after all this time?" He stepped closer, but kept a cautious distance. "Because I needed you to know. I never stopped thinking about you, even in the dark, even when I had to stay away. And now, there's no time left. You need to decide, trust me or let me disappear again." Emily's mind reeled. Every instinct screamed at her to turn and run, but every fiber of her being longed to believe, to reach out, to reclaim the connection they had lost. She could feel the pull, the invisible thread between them, stretched thin but unbroken. I don't know if I can," she admitted. Her voice broke. "I don't know if I can believe this is real." His eyes softened further, filled with a mix of pain and longing. "You don't have to understand it all," he said gently. "Just trust me enough to follow. There's something I need to show you, something that explains everything, but we have to leave now." Emily glanced back at the cabin, the window where the mirror had trembled earlier, the envelope that had called her here. Every memory, every heartbeat seemed tied to this moment. She swallowed hard, the fog swirling around her legs like ghostly hands urging her forward. "Finally," she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll follow you." Daniel extended his hand, and she hesitated only for a heartbeat before taking it. The contact was electric, a spark that traveled straight to her heart. It was him. Alive or not, he was here, and she was choosing to believe, for now. They stepped into the mist together. The forest ahead was dark, tangled, and uncertain. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle in the trees a warning. But Emily kept her grip on him, feeling the weight of the past and the fragile hope of the present in each step they took. A sudden movement in the fog made her stumble. Daniel steadied her, but his expression darkened. "We're not alone," he said, voice low. "Someone's watching. They've been following me, waiting for this moment." Emily's pulse quickened. Danger, fear, the unknown. And yet she couldn't turn back now, not when the night had brought him back to her. Emily's grip on Daniel's hand tightened as they moved deeper into the foggy forest. The trees towered above them, their twisted branches blotting out the faint moonlight. Every crunch of leaves underfoot sounded louder than it should, echoing in the thick silence. She could feel the tension in Daniel's body, the same mix of determination and caution that had defined him when he was alive. "Who's out here?" Emily whispered, her voice barely carrying through the mist. Daniel didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the shadows like he could see things she couldn't. "People who don't want me found," he said finally. "I thought I'd lost them forever, but they never stopped looking. And now, they're closer than ever." Her stomach turned. Fear clashed with longing. She wanted to run back to the cabin, to safety, to normalcy. But normal had disappeared the moment she heard his voice again. And part of her, the part that had never truly let him go, wanted to face the danger with him. The path narrowed as they walked, twisting through dense undergrowth. Every now and then, Emily thought she glimpsed movement in the fog, a shadow darting behind a tree, a figure she couldn't quite see. She wanted to ask questions, but the urgency in Daniel's stride told her it wasn't the time. Finally, they arrived at a small clearing. In the center, partially hidden by the mist, stood an old wooden cabin, smaller than the one she had left behind. It looked abandoned, but a faint light flickered inside. Daniel paused at the edge of the clearing and turned to her. "This is where I've been hiding," he said, voice low. "I couldn't risk being seen, not until I knew it was safe enough for you to follow." Emily stepped forward slowly, scanning the cabin. It was simple, worn by time, yet there was a strange familiarity to it. Memories of summers past, of laughter and warmth, mixed with the cold reality of the night. She realized how much she had missed him, Not just the person, but the life they had imagined together. Inside the cabin, the air smelled of old wood and candle wax. Daniel lit a small lantern, revealing walls lined with photographs, letters, and keepsakes she recognized instantly. Each item held a memory, a moment frozen in time. He moved to a table and spread out more letters, some addressed to her, some to no one at all. "They've been watching everything," Daniel said, his voice tight, "and I couldn't risk letting you see me. But there are things you need to know, Emily. Things about why I disappeared and why I couldn't tell you the truth before." Emily's heart raced. She wanted answers, but fear twisted inside her. "What truth? Why did you leave me? Why did you vanish?" Daniel looked down at the letters, running a hand over them as if seeking courage. "I had to protect you," he admitted softly. "There were people involved in my life I couldn't explain to you, dangerous people. And when I realized they would come after both of us, I made the hardest choice of my life, to disappear." Tears filled Emily's eyes. The grief she had carried for 3 years twisted anew, but mingled with it was relief, understanding, and a fierce surge of love she hadn't realized was still alive. "I thought I lost you forever," she whispered. "You never lost me," he said, finally meeting her gaze. "Not entirely, and now that I've found you again, I won't let go. But we have to be careful. Every move we make from here matters. One wrong step and—" He didn't finish the sentence, but she understood. The cabin was quiet for a moment, save for the soft flicker of the lantern. Emily could hear her own heartbeat, loud in the stillness. She realized how much she had feared this night, and yet how much she needed it, needed him, needed the truth. Then a sudden noise outside shattered the fragile calm. A branch snapping, too deliberate to be random. Daniel stiffened. "They're here," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I can feel them." Emily felt her pulse spike. She wanted to stay, to demand answers, to hold him close, but the danger was real, and the shadows outside made it impossible to ignore. Daniel moved toward the door, motioning for her to stay behind, but Emily refused. "I'm not leaving you," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her chest. "We face this together." Daniel's eyes softened, a mixture of admiration and love shining through. "I hoped you'd say that," he admitted. The night pressed in around them, fog thickening, shadows growing, and the sound of movement outside closer than ever. Emily and Daniel exchanged a glance that spoke volumes: fear, hope, and the unbreakable bond that had survived death itself. Then, through the mist, a figure emerged. Someone, or something, was approaching the cabin, and Emily realized with a shiver that their secrets weren't safe any longer. The figure moved closer through the fog, its outline vague but unmistakably human. Emily's heart raced, pounding against her ribs like it wanted to escape. Daniel tightened his grip on her hand, his eyes scanning the shadows for threats. Every instinct screamed danger, yet there was a strange, quiet determination in both of them. They were no longer two lost souls separated by tragedy. They were facing this night together. Emily peered through the fog, trying to make sense of the figure. A man stepped forward, tall, heavy-set, with a face partly hidden beneath a hood. Daniel's jaw tightened, and Emily caught the subtle flare of recognition in his eyes. This was one of the people he had spoken about, the ones who had forced him into hiding. "They've come for me," Daniel whispered, almost to himself. "And now, for you too, Emily." Her pulse jumped, fear twisting her stomach into knots, but she refused to let terror take control. She would not run. Not now. Not after everything. Then we face them, she said firmly, her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. Together. The man stopped a few feet from the cabin, his posture cautious but deliberate. Daniel took a step forward, shielding Emily instinctively. "Leave now," he called, voice firm, "or you'll regret it." The stranger chuckled softly, a sound that sent a chill through Emily. "You can't hide forever, Daniel. We've waited too long for this moment, and you're not taking her with you." Emily's stomach lurched. These people weren't just shadows from the past. They were real, dangerous, and determined. She glanced at Daniel, seeing the fierce protectiveness in his eyes. The man lunged forward, and Daniel reacted instantly, pushing Emily behind him and confronting the intruder with a courage that made her heart ache and soar at the same time. A tense struggle unfolded, shadows twisting across the fog-drenched clearing. Emily clutched the doorframe of the cabin, heart in her throat, helpless and desperate. But then Daniel stood firm, unwavering, as if every challenge he had faced had led to this moment. The intruder hesitated, and for a fleeting second, Emily saw a crack of uncertainty. It was all the opening Daniel needed. With a sudden, decisive movement, he forced the man back, sending him stumbling into the fog. The intruder cursed, retreating into the mist, but Emily could feel the danger wasn't gone, just postponed. She ran to Daniel, wrapping her arms around him, holding him tightly. His heart was racing, his body tense, but he held her as though letting her go would mean losing everything all over again. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice trembling. He nodded slowly, pressing his forehead against hers. "I am now," he said softly, "because you're here. You never left, and I won't let you go again." Emily felt tears slipping down her cheeks, a mixture of relief, fear, and overwhelming love. The years of grief, the nights of longing, the emptiness she had carried, all of it seemed to melt away in that embrace. She realized that survival wasn't just about escaping danger. It was about being together, facing the world with someone who had been gone and returned. The fog slowly began to lift as they stayed in the clearing, hands intertwined. The night felt heavy with the memory of what had happened, but also full of a fragile hope. Daniel pulled her close, whispering in her ear, "I promise, no more secrets. From now on, we face everything together." Emily nodded, pressing her cheek against his chest. "I believe you," she whispered. Her voice was firm, calm, and resolute, like a declaration to the universe that their story wasn't over, not yet, and not ever. As the first pale light of dawn touched the edges of the forest, they stood together, silent but unbroken. The shadows of danger had receded for now, leaving behind a quiet clarity. Love, loss, and fear had collided, leaving a bond stronger than either could have imagined. Emily looked into Daniel's eyes, seeing the same depth of emotion she had fallen in love with years ago. "We survived the night," she said softly, voice trembling with emotion. "And somehow, we're still here." He smiled, a mixture of relief and quiet joy. "Yes," he whispered, "we're still here, together." For the first time in years, Emily felt an unshakable peace. The call from the number she thought was lost had led her here, to him and to the truth they had both been searching for. The past had tried to hold them apart, but the night had proven that love, courage, and trust could survive even death itself. And as they walked back toward the cabin, hand in hand, Emily knew one thing. Some secrets are silent, but they can never truly vanish. Some love, no matter the years or the shadows, can find its way back, stronger, deeper, and unbroken. The world was still uncertain, the dangers unresolved, but for this moment they had each other, and that was enough. The night had ended, but their story was far from over.